for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is actress-poet Akuyoe and artist Bruce Richards. Akuyoe was born in Ghana, West Africa, and attended school in England. She graduated from New York's High School of Performing Arts. She really got around, where she received a scholarship to study with Uta Hagen and Herbert Berghoff. So, that's how you started your acting career.
Yes.
You did stage, television, and film.
Yes.
And you were a groundbreaker, I think.
That's right. In New York City, I was amongst three first African Americans to be invited into Circle Repertory Company.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
That was the first?
The first time.
And it was from the New York School of Performing Arts?
Yes, absolutely.
So you were very young?
Very young. I was one of the youngest.
How did you feel?
Intimidated. I was working with people like Lanford Wilson and Harry Belafonte.
Jules Pfeiffer.
Jules Pfeiffer. So it was exciting. It was a lot of fun, but it was intimidating. I'll admit it was.
Were you acting?
Yes, I was. I did Love's Labour's Lost with them, and also I did an improvisational piece with Jules Pfeiffer and Harry Belafonte, and it was wonderful. Very exciting work there.
Even at that time, you produced a piece that you had written. What was it called? Shiaba?
Shiaba, yes.
Shiaba.
It was a little story about a woman, an actress, who goes back to Africa, but she has so changed herself that she's now recognized by her own family. And while she's there visiting the house where she was born, she has a visit from her grandmother who has passed away. But she doesn't know her grandmother's dead until the end of the piece. It was a lot of fun to do that piece.
You wrote it?
I wrote it.
And was it autobiographical or was it in your mind?
It was in my mind, but I would say it was autobiographical. It launched the writing for Spirit Awakening, which is my new piece now.
Had you been to Ghana before? I mean, you left when you were very young, I guess.
Yes, and I went again when my grandmother did indeed die, so which was about 7 years later. I went back to visit.
Oh, you went as a teenager?
I went as a teenager when my grandmother died, yes.
Because in the bio, you left at 11.
I left when I was 6 years old, as a matter of fact.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
And went right to England?
Right to England from Africa. We went to London. I went to primary school there and secondary school in England.
I know you were part of the royal family. Were you forced out at that time, or did your parents think
no, what
you
happened?
had to go?
My parents divorced, and we weren't in politics at all, and I'm really happy about that. It's more tribalistic. My great uncle was a chief of a village in Prum, so that's where the royalty comes in. So it was not political. It's not even anything really big. It's more tribalistic. But we left because my mother wanted to travel. She loves to travel, and she just wanted to see the world, and she took me with her.
So you didn't have to flee?
No, we didn't have to flee. That's someone else.
Well, other people did, didn't
yes,
they?
in fact, my very good friend Akosua Buzia did have to flee because her father was prime minister, but we weren't.
Oh, I see. It was political.
Yes,
I see.
But for me, it was purely mom wanting to travel, seeing the world, and which was at that time also very unusual because women didn't do that. Women did not divorce, and women certainly didn't go off traveling to see the world with their children, and my mother did that. So
had she gone to school in Europe?
No, she went to school in Africa, in Ghana.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, she did.
So tell us what your name Akuyoe means.
Akuyoe means blessed woman.
Ah,
Yeah.
so you were blessed. You were able to go away and go back.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you were still in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 1985 you did A Raisin in the Sun.
Yes.
Lorraine Hansberry.
Oh,
I saw that show at
Oh.
that time. Were you on the stage or did you do a touring company?
Both. We were on the stage and we toured with it as well.
Oh, you
we
did?
We toured in Utah, and it was wonderful.
Who was the lead in that?
Robert Gossett, who's Lou's cousin, and let's see, Rosanna Carter, who was nominated for an Emmy early this year for something she did.
They were all working there at the time. There was another young boy in it. I forgot what his name is.
Oh,
He
I
was so
too.
great. Did you
Yeah.
sing in it?
No, I didn't sing in that.
Do
no.
you sing?
I do sing. Yeah, I do.
So it was just strictly acting.
Yeah, very dramatic, all drama. Yeah.
And then I think right about that time you also wrote another one-woman show.
Yes.
You started with Sheba, which I
Yes.
would say was a one-woman, one-voice, right?
Yes, one voice primarily, although it was done with two actors. And later it was made into a film by an independent filmmaker named
it
C.L.
was.
Williams, yes. But it
Where
was
did it screen?
in New York. They're still raising money to do something with it, I believe. And to
Really?
finish editing and everything. But
Oh.
we did have a screening in Philadelphia, New York.
Great.
So, yeah, it looks pretty good.
So we can look forward to that. They
Absolutely.
might spiff it up, and we'll
I hope
see.
so. I
And
hope
then
so.
you wrote something else, another one-woman.
It was Seems I'm Always Chasing Rainbows was the other one that I toured New York City with before, and that came before Spirit Awakening.
And what was that about? Seems
That was-
I'm always chasing rainbows.
Yeah, that had music, and it was a collection of my favorite poetry and monologues. I had scenes from Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire. I just kind of
Oh,
put
you
together
did.
work that I felt I may never get cast for, but I really love to do, so
What a-
I put it together.
What
you know,
a great idea.
Yeah.
So you didn't actually write it, but you
compiled.
You
yes.
compiled
There were a
it.
couple of pieces that I wrote in that particular story, but most of them were from well-known writers: William Inge, Tennessee Williams, and Arthur Miller.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was.
So it
great
was a
fun.
time for real theatrics.
Yeah. Oh,
performance.
yeah. Absolutely.
Did you sing in that?
Yes, I did. The song Seems I'm Always Chasing Rainbows, which is an original song written by my friend Ed Shockley, who's a playwright in Philadelphia, New York.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And then the Spirit Awakening
Yep.
came along. How much time in between?
About actually a year in between the two. Yes, that was when I moved to Los Angeles, and after working at the Los Angeles Theater Center in Eden, I received a grant from the Cultural Affairs Department to write Spirit Awakening, so that's what I did.
And the head of that department is
Nodell.
Adolfo Nodell, who is wonderful.
Yes.
He really knows how to spot talent, doesn't he?
He certainly does. Roella Louise, another woman that works there, they've
She's
been
great, too.
Incredibly supportive of my work, and I'm very grateful for that.
That's great. Tell us a little bit about Spirit Awakening, and you're going to give us a little short
Yeah, I'll do a little-
recitation or something from it.
poetry from it. Spirit Awakening is autobiographical, and it does tell of my leaving Africa and coming to England and then coming to America. And really, it's the journey of awakening. It's about how I came to really love myself and to like who I am, to stop trying to please other people. And I think it touches on themes that are very familiar to a lot of people, particularly young people. So it's a piece that I'm really proud of, and it's enjoying quite a bit of success right now.
So set us up a little bit with the one little...
This poem that I'm going to share with you is called Drums in My Heart. And this is the part when the little girl, I play myself as a little girl in England, when I've been ordered to eat some Brussels sprouts by my teacher, which I hate. So I've never eaten Brussels sprouts before. And so this is the answer that I wished I could have told the teacher, but I didn't, but it was in my heart.
I see.
Drums in my heart, drums in my soul, beating, beating. Feel their seductive rhythms pulsating through my veins. I am an ancient warrior. Head held high, feet set firmly on the earth, tall spine, no need for fighting or bloodshed. Centered in myself, a look, a word, a sigh, or a dazzling smile brings peace. Inner truth slays all injustice. Compassion cradles and uplifts my soul. Color me African. I am an ancient warrior come at last. Being, just being.
Bravo. Very good. And
Thank
do you
you.
play a lot of different parts,
Oh.
roles in this?
All of them. I played my mother, my boyfriends, my teachers. I play all the roles in it. Men, women, black, white, all of them.
How do you
Yes.
get into those roles?
Whew. Well, before going on to play, there has to be a tremendous preparation, and I was really taught that by Sanford Meisner. I studied with him for a couple of years, and so I prepared just by sort of meditating and being still and getting the emotional life that I need for the whole piece.
How long is the whole piece?
An hour and 15 minutes. So for an hour and 15 minutes, it's just me on stage,
But
playing
and
all those
playing all
roles.
these different roles.
Yes.
So you didn't have much time in between.
No, it goes straight from one dialogue. I could be speaking with my mother, straight to the little girl, then to a teacher, then to a boyfriend. It goes just like a dance.
That sounds great. And from dancing to singing,
Yes.
you did a picket fences when you came to Hollywood. I mean, after you were here for a while, and I don't want to go away from our show today without showing this nun that you played. You want to just tell us just a quick...
Sure. It was a mercy-killing singing nun. She's arrested for having aided and abetted in a suicide. And this is the scene you're going to see where
Great.
she's being interrogated by Tom Skerritt.
Good, we'll see that.
To the dark and the empty skies, to the dark and the empty
What's going
skies,
She said she didn't want a lawyer, Jimmy.
to the dark.
Why is she singing?
Several of the witnesses reported hearing singing Roberta Flack songs. I'm going to use this for voice identification, see if we can match it.
She comes up with these ideas. It's fun to go with them.
I don't mind singing, Sheriff. I love to sing.
You have a right to an attorney.
I know, Miranda. I waive my rights. I did not kill Margaret Pilsner. I did, however, afford her with a syringe containing thiopentyl sodium and potassium chloride. She gave herself the injection.
You realize, ma'am, that aiding and abetting a suicide is illegal.
I opted for morality over legality. Silly me. Do you want me to finish the song?
You can forget the song, sister. You're in a lot of trouble.
You've arrested a nun. I think you could be in trouble.
That was pretty brutal. You left him with a scary little response there.
Absolutely. But I got away with it.
I was going to say, did people run from you on the street?
Yeah, actually they did.
Well, then, I think from that, you ran into something that very few people fear to tread, working with gangs,
Yes.
or in a group, a foundation called Earth Trust.
Yes. I'm in association with Earth Trust Foundation. I'm one of the project directors, and I have something called the Spirit Awakening Unmasking Your Authentic Voice workshop, and I take those workshops into prisons where I work with incarcerated gang members.
When you go in, do you wear something special? I know the California Arts Council had this Art in the Prisons program, and the
Yes.
teachers had to wear a different color uniform.
No, when I go in, I don't have to wear anything special. I mean, I have to make sure that it's nothing really too saucy, you know. But I wear my own clothes, and I try to wear traditional African clothing sometimes, just to give them a sense of a whole nother world.
Does it take time to draw them out?
No, actually, it happens pretty fast, Joan. It's
Really?
Yeah, I'm really grateful, but it's work that I love to do, and it seems to happen very quickly. They open up and they share who they are, and they write some beautiful pieces about their life stories.
Does it work for you as far as opening you up to new situations
Definitely.
as well?
Definitely. It's as they're working, I'm working too. It's helped me with my writing. It's helped me to open up, to be stronger. So the work, it works for me too.
That's
you
so
know.
great. And I know you give your time, we talked about the LA cultural
Yes.
community,
yes.
whatever. But you also have given time for the California Arts Council
Yes.
as a panelist.
Yes, yes. And that was a lot of fun, flying to Sacramento for 5 days or whatever, you know, and doing that. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate everything you've done for our state,
thank
and we
you.
thank you for coming to live in California.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Akuyo.
You're welcome.
And don't go away, because when we come back, you're going to talk to Bruce Richards, who did this wonderful artwork on the set. So we'll see you in a minute. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with artist Bruce Richards, who was born in Dayton, Ohio, the middle of our country. He has a Bachelor's of Arts in Art and a Master of Fine Arts in Painting, both degrees from the University of California at Irvine. In 1976, Bruce received an NEA award. He's had solo exhibitions all over the state of California and is included in many of the prestigious private and public and corporate collections throughout the country. When did this passion for art start, Bruce?
I started very young. I started about age 4. I went to Dayton Art Institute at age 5, and it's the only thing I've ever been able really to do with much success.
Is that right? From early on?
Yeah.
Did your parents see this kind of art thing in you?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, they allowed me to do it. Being from Ohio, there was the Midwest, and so, I don't know, I was by myself a lot, and the art really occupied all my time. And it's the only thing I ever really wanted to do or really cared about. So,
did they come from an artistic background?
No, not at all. I've got an uncle that's a commercial illustrator in Pennsylvania who I only met briefly. But other than that, no. My brother was very scholarly and had pretty much wiped out that whole situation for me. And so I just sort of went for my strongest suit. And so throughout school I would do bulletin boards, school plays. At Irvine, early days in Irvine, I would do all the posters for all the hippie bands and anything to sort of work my way along.
Keep your art, keep your hand on the paper.
Yeah.
How did you get to California then?
My father was transferred out here in 1957 when the missile program got shifted. He was at Wright-Patterson in Ohio and then came out to Norton Air Force Base.
So that's what brought you to California. Well, you talk about your brother having this scholarly kind of intellect. I think your work displays an extremely scholarly bent. Maybe it looks simple on the forefront, but I think there's a lot of depth to it, and that's what you're going to tell us about today.
Okay. I'd be happy to.
How do you explain the work? What do you call it?
Boy, what do I call it?
Put a label on it.
Put a label on it. It's primarily based on childhood images, or how can I explain this? What I'm interested in, for the first 10 years after I got out of graduate school, I really was trying to expand the history of art, or that tip of the needle. And I had a show in the late 70s which surveyed that work, and it just didn't, it was abstract art, it was non-objective art, it really sort of dealt with art history. And I had just moved downtown at that time, and I couldn't keep doing sort of art history and life at the same time. It was too chaotic. Prior to going to the college, I did this type of work. I mean, this work sometimes looked like I'm still 12 years old.
But what is this type of work?
What's a narrative?
Is it pop? Is it pop?
It's not pop. It's more, well, it could be pop in the sense that it's popular culture or
Yes.
popular icons. What I try to do, and what happened with the non-objective work, was I tried to take the work to a place where, not necessarily a layman per se, but there was a deja vu quality about the work, that the person already knew the story or some part of the symbol or some part of the image prior to confronting the piece.
Yeah, something like you do these static kind of objects like a chair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what can you do with a chair?
Well, the chair, basically the chair, again, that's a childhood image. In church, you would, while the adults were upstairs in church, you would be playing musical chairs downstairs, which was a very odd game because the whole purpose of the game was to bump everybody else off and sort of be the last person. So the musical chair image was, the idea of that painting was hopefully the painting would be painted full size, the chair would be shown from 3/4 back view, and hopefully two people looking at the painting simultaneously would start noticing one another. The whole object of my paintings is hopefully to do a dialogue with the viewer so that they can sort of reflect, as opposed to the monologue that I felt was happening with my abstract work, where it was telling someone about what it was conceptually. I really want the viewer to sort of light the match. So the titles are important because they're sort of the introduction to the narrative. I don't know, I guess if I'd like to be illustrative Mark Twain or something.
I know, they all have a little story, like a brush. I mean, you've done weather vanes and glasses and boxing gloves and knives. I mean, a brush.
Well,
I mean, a painting of a brush.
Yes. That was a self-portrait.
This is a self-portrait?
Yeah, it's a painted brush.
Is this a large painting? I just have the little catalog.
Yeah, everything I do is pretty much actual size. I pretty much rely upon tricks that were used at the end of the last century by the trompe-l'oeil painters like Harnett or Pitot, where if you paint the thing actual size and you paint it fairly frontally and flat, as Jasper Johns would have done later in the century, you've already sort of convinced the viewer that it's real, or that there's some aspect of it that is not illusionistic. So you're trying to sort of play off the 20th century aspect of art being a flat object, but at the same time dealing with the reality of it. The images I try to do, I try to make things that are I try to make static things animate, as opposed to taking animate things and making them static.
That's, I think, the witty part of it, or the intellectual part. I know some of the reviews I read about your work says that it's witty, but then it has this intellectual depth. Does color play a big part in what you do?
Yeah, color is important because it's going to set the mood. And so a lot of times I'll just try to tint it. I mean, most of the things will come out of a gray or come out of a neutral into a color, where the color sort of just blushes a little bit. I don't use real strong colors, although I use, I guess, I don't know, I probably do use more neutrals than color.
Do you?
Yeah.
Than color. So color isn't so much a part of it. But the one thing that I know you do is you make diptychs and triptychs.
Yeah.
Tell us what a diptych, first tell us about a diptych, because I have in the catalog a diptych, and you can maybe explain this. This is pretty weird. A skull and
That one's called Fate and Chance, and that happened in about 1980 when I first moved downtown, and my studio was located next to a halfway house for drug and alcohol rehabilitation. And so you were watching all these people really make a daily choice between fate or try for the luck. Diptychs and triptychs really come out of a religious painting, where a diptych or a triptych could be actually folded up and carried by either in the Crusades or by the pilgrims, and that could then be brought out at night and opened. I generally do a triptych or a diptych trying to relate 2 or 3 things, so they really become multi-panel pieces more than what an actual diptych or triptych
because are
is doing.
diptychs, say, framed in the same frame?
Yes, usually.
And yours are not?
Well, they are. I mean, it depends on what kind of relationship you're trying to set up. I always try to make it so the object has its own room or its own space, just as an individual would have. And by the fact that it's next to another object, I don't want it to be confused. And so I sort of separate them using diptychs, triptychs, or multiple panels to sort of give each thing its own apartment or compartment.
Does it tell a better story for you when you use several pieces?
Because then they become sequential. They become like the frames in a film. They become serial. And so therefore they are related due to their proximity, but they can be seen as separate objects still.
You did a panel, and I don't know how many pieces, maybe 5, of weather vanes.
Yeah.
I mean, how are weather vanes have depth? How do they have depth? How do they have meaning?
They do have meaning, although you don't need one to know which way the wind blows. The idea was the idea of things that change, indicators of change, and the different images. This was one of them. This indicated luck. This was a maquette for we were going to actually make some weather vanes, and then that sort of faded out. But luck was the tortoise and the hare. There's a Bret Hart quote from one of his books. It says, "One sure thing about luck, it always changes." The weather vane, there was another weather vane that dealt with the law, one that dealt with love, one that dealt with art, and one that dealt with sort of the helter-skelter of nature, which was the wolf blowing over the little pig's house. The art one, which is the idea about art dictating change or indicating change, was the palette with the brushes going through it being the pointer. For love, it was love changing. It was the heart with the arrow going through it, and then on top of the heart, old weather vanes used to have a lightning rod placed on top of them, so that would have the lightning rod, which would cause it to spin. And then the cardinals, or the letters themselves, I would make in the love one have different faces. So as the wind changed, the pointer would go to a different face. And so there are ways of telling stories with using images that people are already familiar with how they work.
I see. But so it's not too personal. It's not just your own personal kind of being. It has, you can let other people into your stories.
Oh yeah, hopefully. I don't think I'm the only one that's had bad romance. I mean, there is always, the images are started by a knee-jerk reaction. Something happens to me personally, and I'm trying to work it out. Art's always been therapy for me, even as a child. Whenever I'd have to work out a problem, I'd go and sort of do the work, and that would sort of help me to get it outside of myself so I could make it tangible, look at it, and sort of become much more objective about it.
Well, on the set, we talked about the tortoise and the hare. Can you quickly just describe each painting, or give us a title for each painting?
The title of this one is The Fall, which is based on Matisse's Icarus Falling, which was in the jazz series in 1947. This whole series of love letters was based on an experience I had at LA County. At the end of George O'Keeffe's show, there were all these George O'Keeffe souvenirs, and that all of a sudden I saw people really participating in the exhibition, owning the art, having a George O'Keeffe. And so the box of note cards, which I bought and which I then subsequently used to send to others expressing my wishes, became a way of how people use art, other artists' works, and how that changes the intention of the original work to express their own.
We have another letter.
In this one, this is Man Ray's Witness. It's called Witness. Then Man Ray was the tear. The idea that it's a surrealist image, but the idea that many times in a love relationship or in a relationship, the only thing that remains after the relationship are the love letters themselves. And so this is the leap of faith that you need to get into the relationship, and this may be after the relationship.
This is great.
This small painting is based on the story of Adam and Eve. It's called Eve's Apple. There's 2 bites taken out of it, which make interlocking hearts, but also the negative space echoes the rib cage of Adam.
And before we leave, quickly, I think this is how we all feel.
Yes, right. Currently, that's sort of how I feel. That's called A House Is Not a Home. It's a little turtle pulled inside his shell, trying to wait for whatever is going to happen.
Bruce, thank you for being with us.
Sure, thank you.
It was great. We really enjoyed having you. And thanks for all of your letters. Don't forget to write to 520 South Grand, 8th floor, Los Angeles 971. And we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.